Hi guys, it's Epsillon here, and today we look at one of the best RuneScape moneymakers you can possibly do. Let's take a look at how you can take advantage of it right now. The money-making method in question today on RuneScape 3 is Ripper Demon contracts from the binding contracts, which due to familiar changes have skyrocketed in value up to approximately 140,000 GP per pouch at the time of this recording. Obviously prices can vary depending on how long in the future you're watching this, but it will still be a consistent moneymaker regardless. This makes Ripper Demons one of the most profitable Slayer tasks in the history of RuneScape right now, and that even rivals some of the high-end PVM activities like Telos, Nex, etc. with almost a 35 million per hour GP, at least consistently with Ripper Demons if you max the task out on Slayer task. So how do you actually do this in game? Well, let's first take a look at the requirements you'll need to do the method. First off, you will need 96 Slayer minimum in order to take advantage of this. Furthermore, you'll also need to have unlocked Ancient Summoning, requiring the completion of the Dagon Bai mystery alongside, also requiring 68 Archaeology, which is boostable using Archaeology Postons, which I would recommend doing. And that is basically the minimum requirements you will need to be able to do this. We must then look at the gear for you to maximize your profit per hour and have the easiest time of stacking out as many Ripper Demons as possible. My equipment setup personally is as follows, but obviously you can swap out your items dependent on your price bracket, but essentially the best kind of items that you can use are Augmented Trim Masterwork, which has, crackling, which also has enhanced devoted 4 on it if possible, and that will just basically reduce the incoming damage over time and act as a great way to reduce the damage taken whilst also maximizing the damage output. You want to be using melee gear here for the majority of it, and it's not necessarily necessary, but what you can do is make sure that you're maximizing it, and this is definitely the way you can go. It will cost a decent amount in repair costs, obviously, so you could go with a lesser armor that maybe doesn't degrade, but in my opinion, this will make the amount of kills you're doing per hour far higher, and it also means you can pay less attention, to be honest, whilst doing rippers. For weapons, I use Darklight for the Demon Slayer ability that it kind of wields, and having that increased damage against demons comparatively even to Drygors, and I also then run it with an offhand Drygor mace with Demon Slayer perk, so we can get that increased 7% damage to demons, and that does actually work on Ripper Demons, which is always really good. And this is basically my setup for doing single target setup for Ripper Demons, and enables me to avoid getting slapped by the insta-kill mechanic Ripper Demons have. Talking about the insta-kill mechanic, it's super easy to avoid, and you really don't need to be scared at all for the most part unless you have multiple Rippers aggroed to you at one time. You simply need to just DPS the Ripper down before the yellow ability bar above their head reaches the maximum, or alternatively, if the Ripper Demon launches into the air after the special ability activates, basically a black spot appears on the floor, and then you need to make sure you're nowhere near that dark spot. Job done. Very easy and simple. In order to make it easier to see this dark spot, if you really need to, you should use the midday filter by right clicking on the world symbol next to your map, clicking on the skybox filters, and then literally just clicking the midday, and that will make sure that the layer for the Ripper Demons is much easier, and so yeah, you can see those black spots far better within the game. Also note that if you reach below 35% health, they will automatically become aggressive towards you, so make sure to keep your health high, and in addition, make sure when you kill the Ripper Demon, you move more than 3 spaces away from it, as it will do rapid damage after dying to the surrounding area, spinning in kind of a rotation, which deals like, 750 hits, I believe, somewhere in the region of that, consistently for a couple of seconds. So yeah, make sure that you typically barge away from the Ripper Demon you've just killed into another Ripper Demon, usually in the opposite corner of the cave, which you probably have seen me do in the gameplay behind. In terms of auras for using at Ripper Demons, I use Berserker Aura for the increased damage, and then if that's on cooldown, I might then use Vampirism, and then alternatively you could use Penance if you need it for the Prayer, or alternatively the Master Brawler as well. You know, anything that you really think will benefit you, especially that Berserker Aura. That's kind of the most crucial one that you can use at Rippers, because it just means that you can DPS much faster against the Ripper Demons, meaning that they will never really activate that special mechanic, which is the insta-kill one that we've talked about earlier. One thing I want to highlight to you guys to make sure to do is to put food on your action bar in case you really need to eat quick, which does happen occasionally. Maybe if you're not paying 100% attention to Ripper Demons, then yeah, they can maybe get you down low, and especially if you get multiple aggroed on you by accidentally dropping below that 35% health threshold at which they become aggressive, then yeah, making sure that you have food on your hotbar can really help you out in those situations and avoid any death costs, because that can significantly impact the amount of money you're earning per hour, not just in terms of the death payout, but also getting back there, resetting, and having everything like that added on to your typical run. As far as extra abilities, potions, etc., you will want to have the Demon Slayer perk on your gear for that increased 7% increase to damage dealt against Rippers, which is really good. You want to make sure that you do have some sort of prayer potion, either a super prayer renewal and the highest type of overload you can make, and bring that along, as well as bringing in something like an enhanced Excalibur if you have it for the extra healing to save time, food and adrenaline. Anything that really boosts up your combat potential and the ability for you to deal more damage in a shorter period of time. Yeah, that's really what you want at Ripper Demons, because it's all about getting as many kills per hour as you can possibly do, and essentially that's something you'll be wanting to make sure that you are doing. So talking about how many you can actually take out in an hour, my typical standard rates for maybe not 100% focus maybe range from 175, and then if I am kind of fully focusing, making sure I'm dealing about the most damage as possible from single target, you can get about 200 Rippers per hour maximum in terms of the ranges that I typically get. Obviously you guys might be a ton better, maybe you aren't as good, maybe you don't have the gear to be able to get those high rates, and so you factor that into your cost calculations, but that currently equates to approximately 24.5 million GP if you can manage to take out 175 an hour, so that's really good. That's just from the contracts themselves, plus the common drops of Rune Salvage, Weapon Poison, Wine of Zamorak and more increase the profitability as well. So typically the common drops will essentially cover the equipment costs and the food costs during your run, so all the Ripper Demon pouches will be the profit. Remember that you have to create the binding pouches, which can be expensive, using 2 Blood of Orcus and 2 Hellfire Metal to create, along with the Spirit Shards and a pouch, but you know, that's basically no money, but combined that's about like 30,000 GP per pouch, so essentially you're making 110k profit on every single kill. And yeah, when you're dealing literally like 200 kills in an hour, you can make a ton of money, and it certainly does make your cash stack increase and skyrocket, and that's something that I have done a lot throughout the time. Whenever Ripper Demon contract and binding contracts suddenly go skyward, typically my cash stacks goes from like 100 mil all the way up to like 500 mil very quickly from just grinding out some Ripper Demons. And I think overall I've got about 8,000 kills at Ripper Demons, so yeah, that's plenty of hours put in there. But remember, this still far outweighs the majority of any other Slayer creatures, even though you do have a lot of extra costs added into the Slayer task, and alternatively just doing it off task. You don't have to do on Slayer task, obviously you get the benefit if you do manage to get it on Slayer task of the extra damage that you get on task, but essentially it's still fantastic. It's one of the best money making methods that you can use right now. I don't know how long it will be around for, so make sure that you jump on this as quickly as possible. and start earning millions per hour, you know, up to 35 million an hour. And one thing I do want to mention is that there are methods where you can use an Oldak coil along with a scythe, and then you melee them down, and this essentially is like a multi-target Ripper Demon, but you have to have amazing DPS to make sure that none of them go through the insta-kill mechanic, or that you have enough kind of wits about you to move every single time that you see and keep tabs of those special attacks charging up, so that you never get that insta kill, because that will definitely cost you a lot. Although you will get a ton more Ripper Demon kills per hour. I've seen up to 500 kills an hour, which would be in the region of like 60 million GP per hour profit from Ripper Demons, which, yeah, I guess if you have that level of focus and that level of dedication to be able to do it. But for the majority of people, if you're not used to PVM, you want to be sticking to the single target like we've talked about in this. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments, along with any further tips you'd recommend. And I hope you'll join me back for more RuneScape 3 money making guides coming soon. Goodbye.